So I teach part-time at the law school, and I made my students come here because I teach the public defender extern clinic. And I am a public defender myself, lifelong. I'm a federal defender here. And I made them come here because our job is this, that we tell stories. And that we tell the stories of ourselves and the stories of our clients and the stories of our families and the stories of our people. The theme is, I am woman, hear me. And I am here because of, not that I was born with the XY chromosome or female genitalia, but I am here because in the late 40s, a young mother in North Korea strapped her 2-year-old to her back, took her 12-year-old daughter by the hand, and left everything they knew. They were waiting on a father who was a husband, a surgeon, an engineer, the son of a landowner, a Korean, a proud North Korean, who would never sign the communist oath. They waited when he said, I will come back for you. And they waited, and the war got closer. And they waited, and the bombs got louder. And they waited, and the women were raped, and the children were tortured, and the men were torn away from their homes. That woman took that 2-year-old, strapped to her back, that 12-year-old daughter by the hand, and walked them through war-torn rubble, through houses that were nothing but piles of bricks, through trees that had been slashed down, that had once been beautiful forests and beautiful farms. That woman hid them in the bushes at night and in cracks in trees where they couldn't be seen. She told them to hush, be quiet, say nothing. Eat these raw turnips, they will keep you alive. That 12-year-old made it safely to Seoul, Korea. There was nothing there because it had been completely bombed out. That woman who strapped that child and carried that 12-year-old by the hand found a small house and put them in there, and then waited for word of the father, the husband, the surgeon, the engineer. The 12-year-old decided, I must learn English. And she did. She taught herself English because she had grown up as a young child being told that the most important thing that any person can ever have is education. And her father, on her first day of school, gave her a little briefcase, looked like leather, made of cardboard, to show her that she was a girl to whom education would mean everything. Even though that was ripped from her hands by the Chinese, by the Japanese, and by the North Koreans. That 16-year-old woman taught herself English. And she went to work at the base exchange, the Air Force Base Exchange, the United States Air Force Base Exchange, where she determined she would marry a pilot. Because why? They're handsome, right? They're dashing, and they apparently have a lot of money to spend. A lot of them also apparently have wives at home. She did not know that. A young clerk, a private, came up to her, saw her working, and said, "Will you go out with me?" And she looked at him, this clerk, not a pilot, not dashing. She didn't know if he was charming or not, because she didn't care, and said, "Yeah, no." And he said, "I'm really sorry, I'm so embarrassed, I'll never do anything like this again, I'll never bother you again." And a week later he was back. And said, "Will you go out with me?" And she went, "I already told you no." Because my mother, the Korean word for yes is ne. So it wasn't that hard to learn no. And believe him, she learned it. On their third encounter, my father came up to her and said, "Will you go out with me?" And on a pity date, she finally figured, I'm not getting rid of this guy unless I just go out with him. He gave her a ring on the first date. They were married in 3 months. My mother moved to a small southern town in South Carolina, where I was born. I am woman because I come from a line of spectacular women who know when no should be ne.